Hi, I'm Frankie Frayne, and I've been making movies since I was a kid. I've made 4 low-budget feature films of varying success, and I've been to film school. Twice. For better or worse, I've developed a science for completing feature-length films on pocket change, and it has a lot to do with the conversations you'll hear on this podcast with teachers, friends, and artists. You don't have to pay $40,000 a year for bad advice. This is Discount Film School. Doug Burgdorff.
Yes.
We're waiting to get you on a podcast for 50-some episodes. Because you are probably one of the most influential, important, creative friendships I've ever had. Did you know that? Did I feel that way? Okay, so for the listening audience, when you go to film school, when you're 18 and you're like, I'm going to go to film school, and up to that point, you've only been making things with like hometown friends. The hope is that you're going to get there and you're going to meet somebody else who's enrolled who has at least similar goals, or somebody you can learn from, or somebody you can collaborate with. And you were one of the first people like that.
Cool.
Became my roommate, shot ABO.
Right.
And now you're in LA, I'm here. We don't talk as often as we used to, but we had a ton of filmmaking adventures throughout college. Between Geezer and Gorham and one of your features, A Lovely Lady, which I think you consider technically your first feature.
Sort of, yeah. That thing I was talking about in high school that I made was at one point a feature, right. But I got so perfectionisty that I cut it down and down and down until it was non-existent. But
I can tell you early memories that I have of you.
Let's hear them.
So the very first one was we had a really attractive English teacher together. What was her name?
I have no.
Wait, I think I might have it. It was Andrea.
Oh yeah.
And she was like a grad student. And anyway, we all had to do one-on-ones with her at one point or another. And I was right after you. And I did my typical verbose thing where I think she was asking me about my goals at Emerson or something. And I was going on and on and on about my movie and about what's going on. And then I left the room and I saw you. And I had seen you in class. You had never spoken once. Yeah, I just figured you were like an extra in my life or something. Right. And then like we gave each other like a courteous wave, and then I was out.
Oh, you got a wave?
Yeah, you were very nice.
Okay, good.
So I got an email that I probably still have actually somewhere from you saying, heard all about the movie. Can I see the movie?
Oh yeah.
And I said, sure. And you were being really nice and really like gracious and stuff. And so you lived upstairs from me. I went to your room and I asked if you had done anything, if you made anything. And you showed me a little like sizzle reel of stuff. And it like really stood out, like visually really stood out from it. And I was hoping that going to film school would show me like lots of like talented kids and it'd be kind of intimidating. But it wasn't. I mean, it was intimidating for other reasons, but it just wasn't happening. Like the work was lousy. I was expecting like these are the prodigies of America have like assembled. Have assembled to make movies. And it didn't happen at all. But like this sounds ridiculous now, but it was like you hung a camera from a fucking rope.
Oh, yeah.
Over a tree and like let it spiral. And I was like, this guy fucking cracked the code.
I wish I could take credit for that. That was what Sam Raimi did on Evil Dead 2 to get that shot.
Right.
Spiraling above Bruce Campbell. So totally just ripped it. But it's an effective.
But it's funny because your style then isn't, I mean, it's developed a lot. But like you've always had the same creative voice visually anyway, and no, for that I mean because your visuals are also kind of they hint at the same at similar narratives that you're still working with. Like I feel like isolated people, lonely people, misfits, people who are too beautiful for their own good or too ugly for their own good. Like you kind of work in like those. And I, when I was more grotesque throughout college, like I kept playing the grotesque guy in everything. But I remember, so you came to my room, we sat down, we watched 10 Pounds beginning to end, the current cut. And when it was done, you go, all right. And you left the room.
No. Yeah. Oh, no. Oh, wow. I'm sorry. No, that can't be true.
You didn't say it was good? You didn't say it was bad?
Wait a second.
It's true.
Oh, no.
You sat in one of those lawn chairs. I had like that lawn chair.
But wasn't I with some people?
Just you.
Shit.
And
that sucks.
And I thought that was it. I thought then I was like, oh, I know what this email was all about. Like, motherfuckers sizing me up. And now that he knows that, like,
oh no,
I'm not really there, like, he's done.
I really just was like, all right.
You said thanks, I think. You're like, well, thanks. And you were out.
Okay. And then, you got to thank you.
Yeah, you weren't being you weren't being a dick. You were just being. You were 18.
Right. Yeah. Oh my God.
I was 18.
If you think I'm awkward now.
But then we got to, like, we started kind of hanging around the same circle, and then in time started, like, I think the first major collaboration was Final Exam.
Right.
Probably. Because we started well,
I thought we became friends.
We did. I'm just cutting forward.
Oh, okay, go ahead. Please.
The creative stuff. But no, we started.
Well, did I come around on 10 pounds? I feel like we had conversations about it.
Well, no, you never liked that movie, and I always understood. I mean, it was a chaotic 6-year endeavor, but it was always a great personal shame.
It's funny. I have fond memories of it, really? So I should return to it and then give you an actual.
Well, now that you're a 30-year-old man, you can look back at what, like, a 17-year-old kid did, and maybe it'll be charming, But at the time, it was just we were just the same age, and it just was what it was. But that's not what I'm not here to, like, browbeat you.
Well, how you felt about? It sounds like I was an asshole.
No. But like, at that time, and I'm sure like, I just watched your new feature, Damsel, and you shot it. And this movie is, like, as John said, like, stunningly visual. Oh, I mean, really, we got to go deeper into how you achieved the look, but really, and take it from a couple of guys who just watched a year's worth of independent film. I mean, it's a cut above everything else. But you were always known for being the guy who could achieve DIY visuals on no dollars, and now that you're working with a few bucks, it seems like, I mean, it's the logical leap from a rope over a tree to what I just saw, which was a pretty incredible look. So I remember at the time being like, maybe this guy will I never worked with a DP before I shot my first movie. I was like, maybe he'll shoot my movie. How cool would that be? And you did. You shot Abo. Do you have fond memories of that production?
Very. That was so much fun because we were going so fast, and I mean, you just cast it so well with Jake in the lead. I was just dying of laughter behind the camera. So it's just to me, it was kind of just a party the whole time. Yeah,
and the prosthetics were really fun. Yeah, and like some of the
super cool.
It was very guerrilla. It was
utterly so,
literally and figuratively.
Yeah, I mean, we were. How fast per scene do you think?
Oh. Some of them were 20 minutes.
We were zipping.
Yeah.
Well, this film that I just shot for my friend Craig, who's in Damsel, we had 15 minutes to shoot some scenes, and it was just, like, insane. But Abo really prepped me for a shoot like that, to work with a friend that I really respected, but I'm not the director. And so much of getting the look is me directing. It's like, no, we got to do it again. I got to go over here. Oh, we're going to change this whole scene to make this thing work and that thing. But, like, as a DP, I want to please the director. I want to go as fast as possible, and I want to do a good job. But, like, sometimes I don't speak up when I'm like, oh, this shot over here. But, like, while working on Abo, that kind of helped me learn what that relationship is, just because I direct all my stuff, and just by just sort of an extension, I shoot it. It's not like, oh, I'm a DP and I direct, or at least not in my head.
You're kind of relying on the director to, if they need to speak up, they'll speak up.
Right.
So I remember feeling guilty on that movie. That, like, well, just that I was like, here's a guy, like, I felt like I was, I suppose, like, using you in a way, where it was like, here, he's got so much more to offer than his steady hands or than his out of the box visual look. And I'm kind of like, I'm using him as a DP is like almost a waste of him or something like that. I remember feeling that way.
In my head, it was completely flipped. I just felt bad that it wasn't looking as good as it could have, and just like worried that I wasn't doing a good job.
But have you gone on to DP lots more?
I've DP'd a few other things. I had a really cool experience shooting a documentary in Africa, which was really exciting. And
what was the project?
The project was following this, like, old professor putting on a production of Rwanda and Juliet Romeo and Juliet. The movie's called Rwanda and Juliet. Mm-hmm. putting on a production of, the Shakespearean play with the two different tribes from Rwanda that were involved in the genocide, and there's supposed to be parallels. But, it was shooting just in these remote locations in extreme situations. I took a bit of a fall and cut open my chin and had to go to the local hospital that was straight out of an 80s horror movie and got sewed up and stuff. But yeah, I've always sort of shot my movies in a documentary way because I feel like it's way more fun to gamble and just when you're flying by the seat of your pants and it's all spontaneous and instinctual, you'll get to things that you wouldn't get if you're sitting storyboarding, especially when you have no money. I feel like it might have been different if I was oh yeah, I got $1 million to make a movie. I don't know, if I started out that way, I might have taken the more Hitchcock approach where everything is just so minutely planned. I
don't have that level of vision in the first place. I don't have. I mean, I have an idea of what I want to shoot, and I know that it's not worth investing in very much until I'm actually in the location with the actors.
Well, yeah, it's not as fun to work that way.
Yeah.
And you can't really, with no money, with non-actors, with no art team, you gotta kind of problem solve quick.
Yeah.
and figure out a way to okay, I have $0, I have a shitty camera, I've got to somehow make this work as a little teen trying to emulate my favorite people like Fincher. You can't do that for no money, so you got to be very creative if you want it to look even halfway decent.
I had somebody the other day trying to they were a musician, and they were saying that they're there's actually musical science which says that this scale or these notes or sharps, and they elicit there's a direct causality between this note or this approach with this emotion. And I like that there's a science behind that. Now I'm interested in, they wanted to talk to me about the science of cutting and getting those exact approaches. And I was I have no idea what you're talking about.
Yeah.
I was there's too many variables to even try to work something like that out.
That's utter nonsense to think there's a science to it. You can't approach it that way. Right. When I'm cutting, it's unbelievably not even unbelievably. Sorry, I'm saying that weirdly. It's all emotional.
Yeah.
When it stops making me feel anything, that's where I cut.
A different take would have dictated a different cut.
Right.
So
exactly.
So then how?
And it's all problem solving. Everything about filmmaking is problem solving.
Yeah.
And so if you go in with these rigid ideas, you're just going to lose, and you're going to waste everybody's time.
And there are the artists that do it. I mean, they're Kubrickian,
Yeah, but I just read this great book on him. But he would take a year to shoot a movie. Right. A year.
Right.
You shot a movie in 9 days.
Yeah.
Damsel was shot in 18. That's not a year. And he had the best crews, literally the best actors, everything. He spent a decade finding the right story, developing it with countless writers, the best writers in the world. And yet it still takes him a year, which says to do it that way, it takes that much because he was the best.
Yeah. So, right. The very best.
Yeah. So to think you can do that in 18 days or 9 days is a joke. So you got to find another way.
I find myself defending it as if if I had more resources, but then I think there's something to be said for lack of resources.
Absolutely. It forces creativity.
And there's a lack of variables. There's a lack of there's only so many solutions to the problems, so you don't perseverate on anything.
Right.
And also, I mean, film being the illusion of motion, you're getting as close to real time as you possibly can while you're shooting different takes.
Yeah.
But where we differ in terms of so I'm totally on board with you, and so I should be on board with improv and ad-libbing more, but I really struggle with it. I've kind of gone away from it.
I understand a reason that might be your reason. It takes a lot more time to find something good.
Yeah.
Because you got to shoot so much more to have enough gems to cut into a scene.
Well, talk about, are all your movies I'm A Lovely Lady certainly was. I don't know if I've ever watched anything of yours that was strictly scripted.
I mean, they all have traditional screenplays, but yeah,
you write out the dialogue for every scene.
Every
scene.
If
you were going to shoot.
There's no scene that says, "Oh," and then they just talk,
and then you throw it out.
Yeah, it has a very clear blueprint, but I think, and this is probably a weakness, I just get so bored.
Yeah.
Like, I'm already over the script,
right?
Even though I maybe should be following it. I just am just like, no, I need to be excited again. And if it doesn't, because I'm going to just cut it in the editing. Like, if I'm not like surprised and excited, like, and every time out, like, you know, in just creating the idea, I've got to be surprised and excited, and then to write it, and then when I'm shooting it, so each time out, it just makes it harder for me to be like, okay, this is good enough to show people.
Well, so then actors are everything.
Yeah, absolutely.
I remember you being horrified of a bad performance. I mean, which is an excellent instinct, but I remember, like, you know, that was like huge with, like, and I think maybe, you know, if I had to theorize, I think the fact that you want to do improv has a lot to do with, like, you want everything to have come from their gut. Yeah,
it has to read as authentic for me. Or I'm just like, oh, that was bad. But I love actors. So, and it's kind of just sort of an indulgent thing to do improv for me, because I just kind of want to watch a show.
Yeah, right. And yeah, I think you conduct yourself more emotionally, like even in the moment of shooting than I do. I think I'm a little bit more procedural. But it's cool to, like, you are so rewarding with your reactions. Like, it's like, if the times I've acted for you, you give me, when I please you, you give me such a big reaction. I want to do it again. I want the high again. Right. And like, I imagine that your sets are conducted that way. But how do you, are you able to share with everybody what's getting captured, or do they have a good sense of, like, what we're doing and how we're getting it, or is their trust just completely in you and they're hoping that it all shakes out at the end?
I hope there's trust.
Yeah, I'm sure there is.
I'm not, you know, called to the mat on, like, oh, I need to see that take, or we're not moving on until, you know, it doesn't work that way in my experience.
Yeah.
But I think it's a mutual sort of trust and respect. I mean, I wouldn't have, like, asked them to be in it if that wasn't there, if I wasn't already, like, a fan and excited by what they could.
How does that happen in the first place? How do you, like, these people in Damsel, do you meet each one of them? Some of them are personal friends, some of them are actors you've worked with in the past, or how do you?
Well, this was the first project that I did that I actually had a casting director. So I got to do that process. Not as in the bigger way that most productions do, but, you know, I was watching tapes and how did that all happen? I need to know how, like, the inception of this project and then how it developed. Okay, so I was about to make this movie called Bastard, and it was a hardcore, violent, fucked up film, and there was money that was promised. It was I knew this actor, and he's like, okay, I have family money. We're going to make this movie for $250,000.
He's a fan. He found you online, or?
Ooh, how did I meet him? Oh, no, I met him through a mutual friend who I did meet online. But a mutual friend introduced us. This guy had, like, this crazy energy. Very interesting guy and good actor. And we made a short together, and it went well. And he's like, and he had sort of gone through a couple other directors and a couple other scripts. And I kind of saw all the warning signs, but I was like, oh, here's this dream of getting to make a movie with actual money, because everything else I had done was, like, basically $0. And so it was very exciting. So I kind of put my blinders on. I was like, no, I can make it work. I'll be the exception. But of course, I wasn't the exception at all. And I don't know if it was all a lie, but there certainly wasn't, you know, there's no movie called Bastard by me. I mean, there's a couple movies called Bastard out there, but the movie didn't happen.
Right.
And I was telling this sort of, like, sad sack story to my grandmother, because it was just like, oh, what have you been doing? It was a visit. And she's been very successful in the real estate business. And she took me aside, and she's like, because she had this conception that all movies cost like $10 million, if not $100 million. Right. So when she heard it was like $250K, she was like, oh, maybe I can do that and help my, you know, little grandson out. And she had no idea the types of films that I have made.
Yeah, you can't make this outrageous movie for grandma.
Yeah, like, but oh, I tried. So she was like, yeah, I'll do it. But I just knew that, like, once she read the script, it would definitely be a no, and it would certainly probably be the end of the relationship. That would be that. Yeah. And she read the script, and she was very upset. Like, very.
What year is this?
Very disturbed. This was 3 or 4 years ago.
Yeah.
So it was absolutely a no. It was
why did you give her the script? Well, I would have just done a different project. That's what's going to happen.
Well, I mean, you see where this is going. But I was like, no, I want to make my movie, and it's not like I'm not going out and killing people. It's a movie.
I'm making art.
Yeah. I mean, and I believed it, and yada yada. But yeah. So luckily she kept talking to me. But so anyway, so
I've been there. My parents had to see 10 pounds. And like an extended family showed up and shit. It's horrible.
Yeah.
Sexually Frank has never been seen by certain people.
Oh, that's funny.
Like I'll hide it for the rest of my life.
Yeah, I understand that. Not with Sexually Frank, but you know what I mean. So so then it was like, okay, she's still talking to me. She's now excited by the idea of making a movie. Am I able to make a movie that's PG? And do I want to? Like, is there a movie that wouldn't be a story that wouldn't be compromised by the lack of things that I usually, veer towards?
May I ask, was Bastard like especially like even by your film standards, really?
In terms of the violence, I mean, there was some sex stuff, but like the violence was very creative and very brutal and very.
You still want to make that movie?
Yeah. My problem is, like, as I was telling you earlier, just once any sort of time passes, I'm just like, I'm
not excited anymore.
It's garbage.
Yeah.
Can't even think. I'm embarrassed. But I don't know. If I did a rewrite, who knows? But I haven't returned to it. So Damsel came out of, can I do this? Do I want to do this? And the answer was, yeah. I mean, like, I love all types of movies, and I've always wanted to make a coming of age film, and I felt like that's a genre that has been explored by, like, every director kind of makes that their first film.
I remember that was big for you. I mean, I would say that a lot of your work has coming of age undertones anyway. But I remember thinking it was kind of fun. It was funny to think that, like, this guy who has this, this like hyper real style and this like, really in your face visuals, like, was also a huge, like, John Hughes fan.
Oh yeah, he's my favorite.
Yeah.
But, yeah. So and, like, Paper Moon's one of my all-time favorites, and that's a great coming of it. There's countless examples, and, like, Calvin and Hobbes is probably the biggest influence growing up.
Well, I can see that here.
So essential, and that was kind of sort of the seed to Damsel in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
I mean, I even named the character Cal.
Yeah.
But
that's great.
So coming of age, since every director's done it, directors have taken that in an extreme, like, done it, like Catherine Breillat with Fat Girl. Like, you're doing everything. It's like so fucked, and like pushing these actors to the the ends of the earth in this really disturbing way. So it's like that had been done. So I didn't feel like I was going to push new ground if I took it in a super violent or super, like, shocking.
Todd Solondz.
Todd Solondz has done it. And, like, Todd Solondz, it's sort of, I mean, he's so incredible at it that I would just be a knockoff if I was.
Right.
So I was like, okay, do I have my own coming of age story that, So anyway, that's how it came about. And then my friend Reese, who had been hounding me for like a year and a half to work together, kind of became the sort of perfect person to, like, be able to talk stuff out. And, like, because I'd never really, I'd co-written some scripts, but, like, never really fully done it as a co-writer. Like with Kurt, our mutual friend Kurt.
Yeah.
We fought a lot, but he also went off and actually did the actual writing.
Right.
And so I never, like, sat with somebody and really
banged out a draft or something.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I wanted to try it. And that was a very interesting experience. And so we went off and made Damsel.
Was Reese comfortable with the idea of, like, did he always know, like, hey, this dialogue isn't going to get shot? Like, this is the script.
I warned him. I warned everybody that I don't really, especially if I'm in control. Like, if I think it's probably going to be a different story if I get $5 million and I'm getting my dream actors like a Jim Carrey or knock on wood that. Well, anyway, but yeah. So, but when you're working with no budget with actors that aren't as experienced, this is kind of the way that I like to do it. So that means kind of just throwing the script away.
So you pulled together the budget you were looking for, and what did that afford you that you didn't normally get in a kind of budgetless situation? Casting director was one.
Something like a casting director, because that's like a few grand.
And are they looking for union people, and does that impact the shoot at all, or?
Well, yeah, it was a SAG shoot, which was another new thing, which really just meant a lot of paperwork and
and weird hours.
Yeah, I mean, like, because there's a child actor,
right? There
was restrictions in that way. But
in most scenes.
Yeah. So, but I prefer not to do long days because I feel like people just get tapped out,
right?
And then you're just kind of like, it's diminishing returns, and it's just kind of, and because it's such a tight, fast schedule, you can't lose people that early on,
Yeah.
So
yeah, that's you sustaining the energy again. That's like everything seems to be in service of sustaining the energy. Like
that's the goal. Yeah.
Yeah. Don't. That's not the thing to compromise ever.
Right.
Right. So you got your casting director. What else did it afford you?
It afforded me camera rental for the first time. I wasn't forced to use a camera that I wouldn't have picked.
So we got to do a technical. If people see this movie, they need to know like how you achieved that look. So let's just do a quick technical dive on it.
Yeah. So for this one, I went with the red dragon, epic dragon.
Yep. Shot
most of it in 6K. Basically because I could. I wasn't planning on cropping or doing anything weird, but if the better quality,
you just shoot to SD and like really big SSD
huge
drives.
Files.
Yeah.
But the key thing for me, and I picked the Epic because it was small, because I knew the whole thing. I wanted to shoot it all handheld, not a single. I wouldn't even rent a tripod. And I knew that I'd have to have, and I grew up using very lightweight cameras.
Yeah.
And I tried the Amira, the Ari Amira,
right?
And that was too heavy,
too big.
Without Ari some kind of rig.
Ari doesn't make anything small, I don't think.
No, even the Mini, which I shot this movie in Australia on, that was actually heavy as hell. And even with an easy rig, which kind of takes some of the weight, it was still like a sort of painful.
So how heavy is this thing? The one that you ultimately shot on?
Yeah, the Epic. It's got some heft, but it's small, it's compact.
Because you're looking for a little bit of weight when you're doing handheld.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. So it's not like an earthquake
right.
Every scene. But yeah, and now apparently the red cameras are even lighter, and so I'm excited to try their new one on the next one. But
and you shot on an anamorphic 35?
Yeah. So the key to get a look that's interesting is what glass you use, really, because nowadays it's just boxes with sensors. So it's all about the glass you get. And one of the most beautiful movies, or one of my favorite looking movies, is Tarkovsky's Solaris. And he shot on these anamorphic lenses, Lomo lenses, and I just hunted them down. And it was like a fun, long hunt to get a hold of these lenses. And I decided to keep it all in one perspective. So I just used literally just one lens the whole movie, which was a fun challenge, and that kind of dictates the look in a lot of ways. Like if you're using one lens, you can't just zoom in, so it forces a look, and certainly these old lenses have so many imperfections, which I love, that gives it this like really special, like I wanted the movie to feel very tactile, like you could touch it, and it's also sort of
it was the first word I used when I described it. It was like it had a real texture to it.
Oh, cool. Yeah, that was the whole goal.
Yeah.
And so, yeah.
In a Calvin and Hobbes kind of sense. Like like a little bit of paper or some like card stock or something.
Good. That's exactly what I was going for.
Yeah. Well, you got it. So, I mean, it's, how do you pull together 18 days for a shoot like that? And you shot this like 2 years ago, and then you edited it in a really small amount of time. And since then it's been about...
Well, the editing actually took a while. My first cut was boom. I'm very fast.
I'm like that too, yeah.
But I kind of made a mistake, or it was just sort of the process where I was, as I was saying before, like I'm always trying to surprise myself. And that meant for this cut that it was very experimental. It was kind of really not taking the audience into into consideration to a definite fault. So it was a lot more challenging to watch. And I think it's sort of challenging now. So you can only imagine.
I gave you my best TV in the house.
So yeah, it was then I went through a ton of edits because my goal was not to challenge the audience in the normal way that I like to do. Like I wanted people to be engaged. So it just, went through a whole bunch of variations, which was an interesting process. And yeah, like usually I've made probably 200 to 300 shorts, and usually they're just kind of like a fuck you. That's just like, I'm doing this, and I like messing with people in that format.
Yeah. And it's really hit with people, by the way. I mean, I don't know if any. So people can find Doug on Vimeo. If you just search Doug Burgdorff on Vimeo or just Google Doug Burgdorff, Vimeo comes up. And I think from what I can tell over the last 5-6 years, you've really found an audience of people that really respond to the fuck you shorts.
A very small audience, but yeah, like it's nice to have like just strangers.
Well, enough that at least one of your actors who I'm seeing in more work all the time. The guy who plays John in this. What's his?
Yeah, Craig. Name? Oh Craig. My God, this guy's a godsend.
And he just started as a fan.
Like 5 years ago, he reached out to me. He said he saw some shorts and he was coming to America with a reality camera crew because he was doing this like make it in an Australian make it in Hollywood kind of docu-series, and he thought it would be funny to do a short and film it.
Right.
So I saw the opportunity there and was like, yeah, and then put on a whole
character. So if you do nothing after this podcast, you got to go and search for the making of Sparkle, Doug Burgdorff, because Doug decides to do some performance art and wig out the guy and the camera crew with like, I don't even know how you would describe. I mean, like he's got like underwear on his head and like sunglasses, and he's not talking to anybody, and he's insisting on being called by a pseudonym, and that production had porn stars in it that are recognizable.
Anything to mess with this camera crew that but we kept in touch after that, surprisingly, and he's a great actor. So I thought of him for Damsel, and he was amazing, and he asked me to shoot his movie, which was an incredible experience and utterly challenging but rewarding.
He wrote and directed?
He wrote and directed. It was a passion project, and he gave me full trust and control of the camera department. Wow. I was the camera department.
Wow. And did he have a few dollars behind that production, or was it like just a passion thing?
It was definitely a passion thing. Yeah. And so
that when you say I'm the whole camera department, you really
was literally, so he said I'd have a couple, like a team, and he warned me, they're just starting out. Showed up, there was 0 people.
Right.
And I chose the Alexa Mini because that's sort of visually sort of the cleanest, best cinematic.
If you got to go quick.
Yeah, and it's just the nicest sensor. It just looks the best. But I didn't know it was so heavy. I'd never used it. And also rented these like 40-year-old Zeiss Primes that I'd never used. And they're were gorgeous. Utterly sticky, though. Like they were hard to pull focus. And my job ended up just being like
just
a focus puller. Right. And I've never done that like professional. Like, I mean, obviously pulled focus on my own things. Sure. But to hit like crazy, like there was no marks. And we're working with a Hollywood actor, Dee Wallace, who's worked with Spielberg and Joe Dante and Peter Jackson. Like, she's not messing around, and she kind of only like doing one take, and usually actually just shoot on the rehearsal. So like I had 0 idea where she was gonna go, and I didn't know where I was gonna go because nothing was. We had 15 minutes to do a whole scene, so it was this crazy trial by fire. So it's just really intense, and I'm just lucky that there's even an image on screen. So. But it was are we going to be able to see that movie? Absolutely.
Nice.
I'll send you a link.
Is it will it be playing? He's trying to get it out there.
Yeah. So he got it into the biggest festival in Australia straight off the bat, and we just got back from Montreal where it got into one of the biggest genre festivals in the world, and that audience was awesome. Like I'd never really done an actual festival experience, and we're talking about like people just cheering, clapping throughout the whole thing, totally engaged.
So you were just high as a kite.
Oh, it was awesome. Well, no.
I meant, because
I was just judging the work and was like, oh God, I fucked up. But but yeah, no, but yeah, no, the audience was so cool, and it's just great to be able to get that sort, because most films don't even, like with Damsel, I've gotten rejected from 99% of the festivals, and it's so heartbreaking.
Yeah.
Because and I was thinking while watching it with you, just how much denial and delusion one kind of needs, but it's definitely always a part of the process when you're in it. Like, because I was watching, it was just like, oh, this is awful, I'm embarrassed. Luckily, you didn't have the same experience I was having, but it just was interesting. Like,
Damsel's a great movie. Yeah, I hope a lot more people get to see it. It's a really really excellent film, and it has have you. I mean, I know you're only kind of just starting to send it around. Is it playing anywhere yet?
Yeah, so it premiered in Madrid, at the Madrid International Film Festival.
Did you go out?
I was excited to. And then I found out how much money, we're talking like $5-6 grand to go. And it's just like, I don't have that money. So it's just like, shoot.
Yeah.
The next one. But yeah, so hopefully it plays at a couple more festivals, and I got to figure out the next part of its life.
Yeah. I mean, there is such a thing as, VOD distribution and everything. It's just that you never really get to the movie doesn't really get to have much of a life when it goes that way. There might be people out there enjoying it, but how do you curate it? How do you put it in their faces? How does anybody know about it without a reward or without somebody vouching for it in some way?
Exactly, or without even a publicist, which is a hugely necessary part of just all the things that I'm not like everything. Like once the movie's finished, I just am kind of. I wouldn't say clueless, because I mean I've read everything from once we got into film, like I was like 12 or something. I obsessively read all day long and watch all day long everything and anything about filmmaking. So I've read everything, but just to put it in practice and also get over my crippling shyness and insecurity, because like I said, like I was like, oh God, this movie sucks while I was watching it with you. So, and like, I was like, it's dead here. Now I know.
If that movie sucks, I don't know. I don't know what we're going to do. I mean, then every movie sucks. And I know you don't believe that because you watch everything. I remember when I met you and I was like, well, he's watched everything. He's watching everything as we speak. He's in the other room right now watching some other, like he's really at the bottom of the barrel watching whatever he hasn't watched yet.
Well, it was funny at that time. I remember like when, Netflix was regularly sending DVDs, I did the 8 DVD plan. So I was just
I remember that
in my room all day.
I would join you occasionally, but I couldn't. Like I have to be honest with you, I got like a 3 new movie a week limit. Like I don't do many more than that, and so I'm sipping through a kind of a smaller straw. but even like directors' interviews, and I think pre-internet you were like a magazine subscriber, and everything, special.
No, and a lot, and like at Emerson, like I spent. Outside of being in my dorm room watching stuff, I'd be in the library reading all the books. They had a great library. Oh my goodness. I remember
working at the help desk and you coming up, and I was like, "What have you been doing?" And you're like, "I just read this like really cool thing about Kubrick," or I just I was like, and they had a lot of great stuff.
Awesome stuff. Yeah. So I don't know. My theory is you can't help but like sort of regurgitate stuff. So instead of just regurgitating Kubrick, who I keep bringing up, I try to just fill my brain with everything. Right. So it all goes through that filter. Like nowadays, sometimes I'll go through 10,000 images, whether it be paintings or photography. Just I followed 23,000 Tumblr blog just that are curated like art things, whether it's photography or painting,
just a kaleidoscope.
And just jam everything into my brain, like everything, and then see what comes out. Because I don't want to just quote, because it's boring to just like, I love John Hughes, but if I was just to remake The Breakfast Club with slight variations, I would be embarrassed for myself, and it's boring.
Yeah. I mean, I have in my life, I have like probably like my sort of my Mount Rushmore of people that have inspired me. But it's funny, I've made a couple of movies. I remember being at one of the Boston premiere of Sexually Frank, and somebody asking like, so who who inspired this movie, or who were you modeling after? Who were you looking at? I didn't have an answer. I actually didn't, like, I needed to give them an answer, and I think I gave them a bullshit one.
It's so hard.
And I was like, I'm more, I don't know. I was motivated by Keith Sadek and Nina Shaleski.
That's the real way to create something that's special.
Yeah.
It's truly inspired. It's not just like, oh, I want to be like these cool guys that like people like. It's like, no, I want to make, an authentic piece of work that's inspired by life, and it's something that speaks to me on a real level. And it's not just like, oh, look, I can, turn on a camera. I don't know. It's just
when you're doing the fuck you shorts, is that working something out? Is that like
it certainly seems like that's probably the case. It's just very instinctual. It's like I have to really want to make it because nobody's asking for it. You made it seem like I have a real fan base, but I don't. It's nobody's like knocking at my door being like, oh, when's the next short? It's not like a YouTube personality thing where it's like, it's just nobody's asking for it. So, and because there's no money that is made, and it does cost a tiny bit of money, I really have to make it. So, yeah, I don't know. So, I don't know.
So what's next?
So I just made a new short in Montreal, and I hadn't made a short in a while, so that was fun to do. And then I've got this horror script that's my favorite thing I've ever written. I'm dying to make it.
What's the concept? Or is it too early?
This is also another failing of mine. I'm terrible at pitching. But it's this crazy like snake spider one it's I like every time out to like give myself crazy challenges. So for this one, I was like, can I make a one location movie interesting? And there's a bunch out there.
I want to make one.
Yeah, and but it's like, oh, just in theory, it's just like, oh God, it's snore. So to make that interesting was like the challenge, to make it a real like story that moves, and it's not like, okay, you're just checking your watch. So and out of these types of like limitations that you set for yourself, so much comes out of it instead of just like, oh, I want to make Lawrence of Arabia, and then you kind of like, it's hard to, where do you go? But if you're like, oh, these are the limitations, well, it's kind of just how I have the most fun. I don't know if it's the best way to go about it.
Well, it's also, I mean, it's going to be so performance based if that's the case. Yeah. Although, I mean, you can have tremendous diversity of looks in a small space too.
Well, that was also the fun thing. Yeah. How do I motivate actual like changes in this one location that's not just like, oh, they're doing like a weird thing now,
they
like,
change the lens.
Yeah, it's like, oh well, this section's all like, no, I don't want to do stuff like that. It's got to be totally motivated, and then out of that you can get to some really exciting things, and to not just make it like a play, to make it very cinematic was also a really fun challenge. So that's the movie that I'm dying to make. I've been developing for a few years a movie about Ted Bundy, and I finally found an angle into that, which would be cheaper than this one location thing.
Holy shit.
So I'm very excited about that. I've read every book on him.
So he just fascinates you?
Fascinates me. It's somebody that was charmed the world to the point where like he had, just a woman married him when he was in prison, but like he fooled everybody in his life. Just so like, wow. Just a character like that can I don't know, there's something there, and just the brutality of it. It's just like really disturbing. It just it's fascinating.
Yeah.
So there's that. There's and there's a few other things that.
When are you gonna cast me again?
Hey,
I can act.
Can you fly out?
Yeah, I'm not on my college budget anymore, so I can do things. Well, I can even take a little bit of vacation time.
It's so funny. So recently, I've been going through all of my old DV tapes, and there's hundreds and hundreds. And I found our tape of the Cayman Islands where we were just shooting, and it's the funniest stuff I've ever filmed. So I gotta cut that in. I at least gotta send it to you.
I remember like whenever I would come across like your new work after we graduated, when there'd be like another chubby bearded guy or something, like because you've been working.
I was always searching for you.
You've been working through you've been working through a series of chubby bearded guys. I'm always like, they're not so fucking funny.
I agree.
I'm a little bit better. So hey, I'll be in something, and then also I think that I mean, unless you're trying to create a mystique around your films, I'd love to do like a behind the scenes thing or like an extended documentary on the making of one of them.
That would be so fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because you don't have to do anything. You just have to keep making the movie.
Exactly.
I'll do it around you.
Yeah. I mean, oh my God. Your making of Geezer and Gorham and Brain Eating Aliens, those are must see.
I like to think that they're like essential to the watching of the actual film.
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. And I'm a huge fan of that type of documentary, like American Movie, obviously, and
in my top 10 films of all time.
Yeah, and so on this Australian movie, we had this documentary guy follow us, and he's making a feature length. We just saw while we were in Montreal 2 hours of the 5-hour rough cut, and it was so fun to see. But yeah, he made this movie in 2002, I think, called Making Venus. And it's about like an independent movie that just is a total disaster. And it's not a success story. It doesn't like turn around. And it's just, I eat those movies up like nobody's business. I love them.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I would love that.
Well, people should watch Doug's everything that Doug will share with the world, which isn't everything, not even close. But there are a few films he's deemed worthy of at least putting on the internet, which is awesome.
Well, the key is me just not watching them again.
Really?
So I just,
and then you'll leave
denial. Yeah. It's just like, I hope that's good.
I remember you made a couple of efforts in the time I've known you to like curate your stuff into a website or something, and then you spend most of your time and effort and focus on current productions, really.
Right, and then the trouble, self-promotion is so hard for me. I don't know why.
Yeah.
It should be easy, but I just feel like I'm lying. Like if I was like, oh, Damsel's the best thing ever. Like I'd feel like a liar.
Right.
Like, because I don't think that.
Right.
I'm like, oh, this is bad. So, so it's just like, and my whole goal is to make authentic stuff and to, hopefully be at least a little bit authentic in my life. So it's just like, it's hard to be like, oh, I'm great when I know that that's not the case, or that I don't feel like I'm any good.
Well, that's a mark of, I mean, there are a lot of creatives that feel that way. I know like how many times I've seen like Trey Parker on South Park would call Comedy Central and say like, sorry, we're not going to deliver. We're not going to deliver this show because it's embarrassing to put this on television. And then
I understand that.
It turns out it was the World of Warcraft episode or something.
Oh my God.
It's like it wins an Emmy. But I guess neurosis is part of the process, right?
I guess. I wish it wasn't.
Like chasing quality or something.
I would love, like, you'd hope that, like, oh, I made a movie and you can just celebrate. But, like, at this big screening I just went to, I was just the whole time I'm just tense as hell and so just like, and just like mentally, like, using like magical thinking to like try to get the thing in focus or like just watching it. It's just like crazy. It's crazy.
I do know that feeling.
But it's just like, so I don't know. Hopefully I'll figure out a way to enjoy my life.
You stepped it up for me a little bit. I remember on one of those first screenings of 10 Pounds, there was some schmutz on the lens or something. It was at a time in my life where I'm frankly a little bit of the opposite, where I'm like, it's good enough, we can move on. Like we know what we're trying to get done here. We're just trying to move through these shots. It'll be good. They'll understand. They'll forgive us.
Well, that's healthy.
I don't think so. But like it'd be good to be like, let's stop and make sure it's perfect or make sure it's good. But I remember you were like, oh, there's a little bit of schmutz on the lens.
Oh, no.
No, you were. And then from that point on, I think I cut around it, or you ever have somebody deliver a note and that like you have to address their note?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. Even if you're not convinced that they're like everybody will feel the same way as them.
Because it gets stuck. And like, I'll believe any negative thing.
Yeah.
I'm not going to change my voice or what my vision is for whatever project it is. But like, I'll run with a negative thought. Oh my God.
You know what you need to, the fuck you shorts are great, but like doing episodic stuff where you release something on a schedule and you never turn back.
I think that's smart. I should try that.
It's kind of fun. Because you never really review the quality of the thing. There's no time to really. So I've been wanting to do this for a long time. Thanks for making the time to do it.
This was fun. Thanks for having me.
I want to do it again. I want to go like, there's so much to, there's 12-year-old Doug and there's 13-year-old Doug and there's a library of shorts and stuff. But Vimeo's the place that they should go?
Yeah. And I've got a Tumblr thing where I'm doing other visual junk.
Right. And they should just Google like Doug Burgdorff Tumblr.
Yeah. For the past year, I've been doing a lot of GIFs and exploring that.
Yeah, I've seen you've been doing that. Yeah, so like bite size.
Just bite size, just because it's something that hasn't been explored that much in terms of just trying to find the weird.
Oh, interesting.
Things you can do with that loop, with like trying to turn 4 frames into something that transcends the 4 frame, or trying to. So it's a fun like challenge that like I can do them every day and not have to come up with a whole script. So
no audio element.
Yeah, it's just it's a way to play with photography and with what I love, which is movement and play, explore something. But I'm now going to concentrate on this new feature and new shorts, hopefully.
He's a good fucking filmmaker. He was when he was 18. He still is now. I hope that people get to see Damsel because it's worth their time.
Thank you, Frankie.